It will.
I think we should talk to our next guest.
I think we should. Mr. Tom Sears, who we spoke to from James Bond Radio last week, very kindly was giving us the lowdown on what he thought the new Spectre movie was like. He's now seen the new Spectre movie, so we're going to find out from Tom precisely what it was like. Tom, a very good morning to you.
Hello, fellas. How's it going?
Yeah,
Good, Tom. Very well indeed.
Now, if I recall correctly, you were telling us that you'd managed to snare some tickets for the premiere last night, but you were then also going to yet another screening at 11:30, which I presume has just finished.
Absolutely.
So you've now seen it twice.
Not quite. So basically, we got out too late to actually make it over to the Leicester Square version, but we are actually waiting outside because there's a bunch of about 30 to 40 of our listeners inside the Odeon Leicester Square right now. They're about to come out any minute now, so we're waiting outside for them to see what they thought.
So as your first sort of premiere experience, how was it? Where were you sitting? Were you in Siberia or were you near anyone?
It was amazing. So we did the whole red carpet walk down, surrounded by all the stars. We got our photo taken with Barbara Broccoli. We got a photo taken with Stephanie Sigmund, who's one of the new Bond girls in the pre-title sequence. We saw Mr. White, who you'll remember from Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace.
Oh, yes.
We got a photo with him. We saw them all. We were like feet away from Daniel, but he had too many bodyguards, so we couldn't hug him, sadly. It was amazing. But in terms of our seats, they weren't the best seats in the world. They were right down the front, but they were on the kind of the side, so we were looking at quite a sharp angle. But it was definitely watchable. It was great. It was a good angle.
Okay, and in the pantheon of Bond films, what would you give it marks out of 10, Tom? And where would you rate it in the league table of Bond films?
Right, I'm not ready to do that, right, because it takes a long time to actually, let it breathe a little bit, let it settle before I'm willing to do this. But what I will say is this. Now, I'm someone who obsesses over minutiae. I watch a lot of Bond. I talk about it with my co-host Chris on James Bond Radio every single week for upwards of 3 hours, 4 hours at a time, right? Yes. That's the sort of person I am.
Yes.
Now, I wasn't that big a fan of Skyfall. I came out, I thought, yeah, it was all right. This one is absolutely bang on the money. Every single second, I was glued to that screen. It's kind of like they've gone into my brain and gone, let's make the perfect Bond movie for a hardcore fan, and that's what they've served up.
I saw some comments tonight from people who may have been to the same screening as you, who said Daniel Craig was absolutely 100% brilliant. Sam Mendes didn't make the film strong enough for him because he was so good. Does that make any sense?
Well, there's a lot of action in this one, and I guess that's the angle they're going for. But at the same time, it wasn't like cheap action. It wasn't, just action for action's sake. It was all very, it was. And I tell you what, one of my favourite things about it is how with the old classic Bond films, you always had like a stunt that kind of broke records and took things to the next level. When they did the car barrel rolls, jumping, Man with the Golden Gun, things like that. There's a stunt in the pre-title sequence for this that is absolutely mind-blowing. And it's like going back to that classic way of filmmaking. Not much of the old computer-generated stuff, for real stunts, which is... Okay.
Well, on your Twitter feed, I can't quite read out precisely how you described the film in 3 words, but 2 of the words are absolute masterpiece.
Yeah.
There's an adjective in the middle, or an adverb.
That's right. Tom, I've got to ask you to solve a problem, which I've already raised here with Mike Graham. Traditionally, Moneypenny is a secretary who sits in an office and lusts after James Bond and wants to romance James Bond. But Moneypenny in this film is the same woman who shot James Bond by mistake on the roof of the train in the last film.
Yeah.
Well, so has she now become an agent or something?
Yeah, no. Basically, the idea was she was a field agent at the beginning of Skyfall. She messed things up a little bit by shooting Bond by mistake. Now she's got the desk job, so it's kind of the other way around, basically.
So she's been demoted?
Yeah, in a sense, yeah. She kind of went through that journey in Skyfall, and she was like, do you know what? Being out in the field isn't for me. I prefer a desk job.
But I think where Mike's getting confused here, if you don't mind me saying so, Mr. Parry, is that he thinks because it's a desk job, she's now automatically become a secretary, which is not quite the case.
I guess so. I mean, she does get out and about a little bit in this one, I must be honest. But yeah, she's certainly not running around with guns and things like that.
Well, in that case, they've completely changed the profile of Moneypenny. Moneypenny used to be a very simpering, womanly figure who was anxious
Simpering's a bit harsh.
No, it's not. Anxious for James Bond to romance her and make her Mrs. Bond and all that. Whereas here, we've got a woman who is playing the same role, i.e. M's secretary, who is now as capable with a gun as she is with a typewriter. So they have changed her profile, haven't they?
Yeah, I must admit, that was one of the sort of things that I thought was not really to my taste with the last film. To be honest with you, I didn't think that was perhaps such a great thing. But she's more in that vein now. She's all right now.
Well, Mr. Parry was hoping to go to a special sort of black tie opening of the film last Friday evening, I think.
Last Friday evening.
It's going to be on next Friday evening, so I guess you would urge him to go to this one.
Absolutely, yeah. Honestly, I cannot recommend it enough. It's like for somebody like me who just obsesses over these things.
Sure.
You don't. If you meet me down the pub, you do not want to get me on Bond if you're not a Bond fan, because I will be talking about it all night long.
Excellent.
Because it's like they've taken all the classic things that I wanted to see in Bond again for years, and they've served it all up on a golden plate.
Yeah,
well, it sounds
brilliant.
Sounds
Absolutely brilliant, Tom. And thanks for taking the time to come and talk to us, Tom, because as the world's top expert on James Bond, it's terrific to have you on the show. Thank you very much.
No worries. Cool. If you want to listen to the show, just go to jamesbondradio.com.
We certainly will. Thank you very much
Tom,
indeed.
Thank you very much. And do you see how he managed to tell the whole story there without giving anything away? You could take a leaf out of that book because, I mean, unfortunately, whenever you go on to tell us about Porky Vision or some movie or other, you're always giving the ending away.
I haven't given the ending away to the Sam Fox story yet.
Well, no, you haven't. We're going to get to that in a minute.
It's a great story.
I've got a great one here from Pete.